Chapter 383, Treasure Palace. Half-immortal weapon. Hearing the words of the three brothers Broken Dawn, Kang Tia, and the others, including the Dan Emperor, all fainted. Everyone's eyes were filled with would-be hot gazes as they knew that this trip to the Immortal Mansion had definitely earned them a lot. After the Broken Dawn scattered Immortal's remnant god revealed the information about the heaven-breaking sword, it gradually dissipated, leaving behind only a shattered crystal ball. And as the crystal ball shattered, the earth in front of them trembled for a while. And then a radiant palace slowly rose up. The entire palace was made up of green-esque crystal stones, which scattered brilliant green light, and the overall appearance was one of radiance. When Kang Chon's for people saw this palace, their eyes instantly froze, their faces full of unbelief. From within this palace, they sensed an extremely strong aura, which was so thick that it was almost liquefied, causing the air around them to be heavy. Amitabha Buddha. The Buddha is above. It's hard to believe that this palace is all made up of extremely high-grade spirit stones, right? Brahma Heart's eyes widened with shock. Extreme spirit stones were very precious in the cultivation world. As disciples of a large sect, Kang Tia and the others were very familiar with the fact that the walls of this palace in front of them were all made up of a single piece of extreme spirit stones piled up. And that was why it made the palace radiant with a spiritual aura. Up, absolutely up, according to the size of this palace. I'm afraid that there are millions of extreme spirit stones. Little Gold's eyes smoldered with a greenish glow. What a beautiful house. Zhao Linga, on the other hand, was stunned by the beauty of this palace. Kang Chia smiled and said, "We don't need to worry about spirit stones anymore in the future. Let's go in and take a look. If the palace is so precious, then the treasures inside are bound to be extraordinary." When these words came out, Little Gold and Brahma Heart's eyes immediately lit up. Right, based on the value of this palace alone, it has passed a king-grade treasure. Then the treasures that are placed with this palace are bound to be extraordinary. At the very least, they are also king-grade treasures. After thinking about it, several people stepped into the palace with an excited look on their faces. Although the outside of the palace was radiant and blinding, inside the palace, it wasn't as dazzling. Although it was still bright, it wasn't as blinding. It was only the thick aura that made the four Kangchons who had entered feel their bodies much heavier, as if they could touch the aura with a wave of their hands. Cultivating for a day in here, as good as cultivating for a month outside. Little Gold couldn't help but sigh. Kang Chia nodded and said, "After breaking through the divine separation stage, the degree of cultivation slows down a lot. And for each level of progress, it takes about a few decades. If we have this palace, the degree of cultivation increases by more than 10 times. Those old guys, even if they are supremely talented, it would take more than 1,000 years to cultivate to the harmonization stage. With this palace, I'm afraid that we will be able to reach the harmonization stage in 100 years or so," Little Gold said with an excited face. "This can't be blamed on them. The entire cultivation world can't find a few people who can cultivate in a palace created with millions of extreme spirit stones." Van Din laughed bitterly. Although 1 million extreme spirit stones were not much for the Heavenly Tao sect, which was also a large sect, the problem was that the Heavenly Tao sect was a large family with too many disciples. And even if each disciple had 1 extreme spirit stone, it would still be a very large amount. Therefore, even the Heavenly Tao sect's patriarch couldn't be as extravagant as they were, using millions of extreme spirit stones to cultivate. "Brother, why don't we just cultivate here in seclusion until we reach the harmonization stage? And once we go out at that time, won't a few of us join forces to be the enemy of the world?" Little Gold laughed. Kang Tia and the others heard the words. "Which have you think so simple? Cultivation cannot be a closed door. Relying on hard repair can be cultivated to the stage of the merged body. that the cultivation world has long been merged all over the place. Kang Chia rolled his eyes and said, Kang Chia is right. The harmonization stage is different from other realms, without chance and enough enlightenment. I'm afraid that you'll be stuck in the separation stage for the rest of your life. Just look at those sacred sons and kings. All of them don't have a weak talent, and their strength is even able to cut down harmonization stage powerhouses. But how many of them break through the harmonization stage? Van Din said. When Zijin thought about it, he also understood. After the harmonization stage is the transition Mahayana stage. The Mahayana stage can be said to be a quasi-immortal, so the harmonization stage is also considered to be the last realm of a cultivator. So naturally, it is not that easy to break through. Forget it. Let's first take a look at the treasures that the Dawnbreaker scattered immortal left behind for us. Kang Chia waved his hand and walked towards the depths of the hall. The furnishings within the hall were very simple. There were some tables, chairs, and all sorts of furniture. But all of them were made of extremely high-grade spirit stones, and each one of them exuded a compelling spiritual aura. Why do I feel like this Dawnbreaker scattered immortal is like a thug? Brahma said with some depression. Kang Chia didn't say anything. At this moment, he was attracted by the dozen or so weapons on top of a table. Each one of these weapons was radiating a faint light, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. They looked colorful. Hiss! What a heavy axe! Suddenly, Zijin, who was standing beside Kang Chia, picked up one of the axes on top of the table. But it was so heavy that without defense, it almost made him dislodge it. Fortunately, he had broken through to the divine separation stage, and his strength had increased a lot, so he didn't make a fool of himself. Let's see what grade ... This axe's little gold was obviously very curious, and his divine thoughts probed into the axe, and a huge wave of information immediately came. My God, brother, this is an extreme grade treasure weapon. After receiving this stream of information, Little Gold jumped up in excitement. It was important to know that amongst the several people present, apart from Zhao Linger's unknown coffin board, Kang Chia was the only one who had a blood blade with the power of an extreme treasure weapon, and Zijin and Fan Din were both bare bones, without a competent magic treasure. For a cultivator, magic treasures were very important. Zijin and Brahma Din, who had broken through the divine separation stage. Either one of them would be able to fight Kang Chia to a draw. But if Kang Chia used the blood knife, the two of them would not be able to defeat Kang Chia even. If they joined forces, this was the advantage of magic treasures. Extreme treasure. Not far away. Van Shin's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly ran over, picking a pair of glove-type magic treasures on top of the table, and his divine mind probed into them to check them out. A moment later, Van Din sucked in a breath of cool air and said excitedly, "This is also an extreme grade treasure weapon." Really, Little Gold was pleasantly surprised at his words. Then, as if he had remembered something, his gaze brushed and looked towards the other magic treasures on the table. Fan Din similarly looked over, and the same thought rose in both of their hearts. There's no need to look. These 13 pieces of magic treasures, they are all of the extreme treasure artifact grade. Kang Chia spoke at this time, his eyes equally filled with excitement. As early as when he saw these magic treasures, he had probed all over with his divine thoughts. And now, with one exception, they were all extreme grade treasure weapons. And his heart was so excited for a long time that he froze beside him, not speaking. Up, absolutely up. After Little Gold was shocked, his eyes were crimson, fiery gaze, staring dead on the magic treasures on top of the table. Even Brahma's heart was, at this time, filled with excitement. Kang Chia looked at them and laughed. Pick your own suitable one. Without waiting for Kang Chia to finish his sentence, Zijin and Fan Din, including Zhao Linger, all immediately picked their own magic treasures. Kang Tia himself picked out a magic treasure, the glove that Brahma Din had just taken, called the Dragon Elephant Roar, which was able to wield great power when combined with his Overlord Fist. And Zijin, after picking, found a stick-type magic treasure, called the Wujin Rod, with a body that appeared ebony black in color, radiating a compelling fierce aura. This rod weighs 10 million jin, and it also comes with a gravity formation. When a rod goes down, it forms a gravity field, and anyone who is under the field's shroud is subjected to 100 times gravity. Little Gold laughed with a face full of smugness. Kang Tia was surprised at his words. This was indeed an extraordinary magic weapon. I'm afraid that its power was straight up to a king-grade treasure weapon, which was suitable for Little Jin. I'll choose this Wind Cloud sword. Soon, Brahma Din also chose. His hand held a 3-foot green peak sword. The sword's light flickered with a cold light. There was a hidden murderous aura coming through. It was extraordinary. Kang Tia was surprised. You can use a sword. In his impression, Van Din hadn't used any weapons, so he wasn't sure what magic treasure was suitable for Van Din. Zijin was also surprised as he looked at Van Din. There were very few people who used swords in the cultivation world, but all cultivators who used swords were known as sword immortals, and every sword immortal was very powerful. Only over the years, the sword immortals had declined, and the cultivation world couldn't find any more sword immortals. In Kang Chon's impression, I'm afraid that only that Shen Ti Yuya was the only sword immortal he knew. Shai farewell 3 Ri, when you look at me. After returning to the 10,000 Buddha sect from the spirit sealing space, I have learnt quite a few divine abilities. Among them is our 10,000 Buddha sect's famous 10,000 Buddha heart sword, which is one of the top sword techniques in the righteous path. Brahma Heart laughed. This kid actually learnt the 10,000 Buddha heart sword. Not simple. Dan Emperor's exclamation suddenly came from his mind. Kang Tia was stunned. It seemed that this 10,000 Buddha heart sword was indeed extraordinary. Even Dan Emperor praised it. Brother Van Din, is this 10,000 Buddha heart sword powerful? Little Gold curiously said, of course. Brahma Heart said with some pride, do you guys know about our 10,000 Buddha sect's Demon Buddha Senior? His old man's masterstroke is the 10,000 Buddha heart sword. It is said that his old man has already cultivated this sword skill to the level of great completion, and can produce 10,000 heart swords. Once the 10,000 heart swords come out, even if your Heaven's Path sect's law enforcement elder can only rely on the 9 transformation golden body to hard block it. Now Kang Tia was completely shocked. He was naturally clear about the law enforcement elder's 9 turns golden body, which was a precious body derived from cultivating the 9 turns Zhuanggong to the peak of the 9th layer, and was extremely powerful in defense. The enforcement elder was able to shake the cultivation world by relying on his powerful Tao of the blade cultivation, as well as the terrifying defense of the 9 turns golden body. As for the Devil Buddha that Van Din had mentioned, Kang Tia was also very clear about it. That was a world-defying powerhouse alongside the law enforcement elder and the cultivation elder. It was said that this Devil Buddha was originally a genius of the Devil sect, and was even about to take over the Devil sect and become the Devil sect's patriarch. But strangely enough, this guy once dreamt of Amitabha Buddha, and then just put down the butcher's knife and became a Buddha, and became a supreme elder of the 10,000 Buddhist sect. It was precisely because the Devil Buddha had changed his ways that the current Devil sect patriarch had the chance to become the Devil sect patriarch. At that time, this thing was a sensation throughout the Flood continent, also led to a war between the good and the devil. The battle was very tragic, and finally the good and the devil both sides were defeated, only to give up.